Imagine you walking down into your corporate office and you notice 50% of the staff is virtual agents or virtual workforce. Sound pretty interesting or pretty scary, but that's a reality. According to McKinsey, 40% of the corporates who have employed or deployed AI into the workforce, they have achieved 40% better result compared to their competitor. But when you talk to the C-suite, only 23% of the C-suite executives, they are aware of data and AI literacy. So today, I'm your host, Gaurav Shinh, and with me, I have Aditya Kaushik, who's veteran into this field. So we'll be talking about this gap between what AI can bring to the table and how ready the corporate C-suite is. So Aditya, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Before I start into my question, could I ask you to please introduce yourself and talk about your journey with respect to data and AI?
Okay, so I'm Aditya Kaushik. I currently spearhead information communication technology for a maritime company in Abu Dhabi. My journey is close to 30 years now within technology. Worked through multiple companies and multiple industries, from aviation to EPC, construction, civil construction, oil and gas, and now in maritime. Seen the days from the legacy 486s to current, buzz about AI. When you talk about how it has evolved, it's actually always been a challenge. I think, like any other technology, IT holds a significant responsibility of how AI can be adopted within an organization and how it can be embraced by the employees and by the workforce. So I think that's been my overall journey in the last 30 years. I've been in sales as well, which has helped me to understand the other side of the table. I've been in operations, so that's helped me to understand the urgency and contingency of time and scheduling, and how important it is to find value whenever you're operating in any business model. So this has all sort of now culminated into how to implement AI within an organization.
Amazing. I'm looking forward for a good discussion around
Sure.
AI. So Aditya, first question, can you talk about, given your role, you have worked with a lot of senior exec within different organizations across the globe. So can you talk about what are the key misconceptions when it comes to AI delivering actual value at the board level? So if you can talk about maybe some of the misconceptions.
So among the main misconceptions, I think the first one is it's again seen as a plug-and-play tool. And there is a perception in the board that get IT to deploy AI. And I think that's always been the case with any new technology that comes in. And that's one big misconception of how AI should be deployed within an organization. The second is this realization of value, because AI, as you know, is not a working system. It's a learning system. You need to deploy, you need to integrate. It requires a significant business transformation to actually realize any kind of value from an AI initiative.
Yep.
So there is definitely a misconception that once we deploy AI, when can we start getting an ROI from this, right? And that value expectation is something that should be addressed with the board up ahead. And third misconception is the fact that this fear or this sort of lack of understanding of what AI can bring to the organization and the clear reasons of why a business should adopt AI. So I think if there is no clear direction from the board as to why they should adopt AI, then there will be a disconnect all through not only how you deploy it, but also on when you start looking for value realization.
Oh, very interesting perspective regarding the transformation journey. So, how much you think it's a hype? Because when you talk to everybody around you is talking about AI, everybody's talking about Gen AI, everybody's talking about DeepSeek, and all of these cool, sexy widgets what AI has come out with. So from a value realization standpoint or from a value creation standpoint, how much you think, is there a mantra, Aditya, what you have built over last couple of years? This is how you can create a value from AI investment?
So for me, I see hype as a good thing.
Okay.
right? I don't see it as a negative.
Okay.
Because sometimes, as you realize that AI is one technology which is fairly universal. If you look at AI, it was available to the individuals within your organizations through GPT and other tools
Yep.
before people could actually see it in their organizations. So the expectation and the hype is actually a good thing. The crucial point is whether you, as a leader within technology, can translate that hype into reality.
Yep.
And I think that transformation is a very crucial step. To think of it, I feel at this point the IT leaders are at a crossroad. They have a significant responsibility for the success of AI being deployed effectively in an organization. Now, there are ways to go about this hype. You can, have a FOMO and you can deploy the coolest and the easiest technology within the business, just to keep people believing that there's AI within our organization. And or you could go through a very strategic thought process within the organization, engaging the board, engaging the business functions, engaging the various value models or the value chain models that you have within the organization, how you generate revenue, how you incur cost, and start thinking about all those elements in reference to how AI can come into play. Now, if you have that approach, then it's not going to be a rapid start, but it's going to allow you to position it correctly first within the organization. Also create awareness at the same time, running workshops upon people understanding what AI can do. People know what AI can do from all the information they receive from the social media and from the newsreels, but they don't understand how to contemplate it within their own organization. And I think these are the key areas that, as a transformation leader, you need to focus and channel your energy. Because if you don't use the hype to your advantage, then people go through a fatigue. They see you trying to deploy something. You see that it gives you a eureka moment in the beginning, let's say a flashy, very interactive, insightful dashboard and a report that generates in no time. But then as you realize that the foundation is not properly built with regards to your data sets and your, the information flow, then the model starts to underperform.
Yep.
And then the hype starts to turn into failure. So I think it's important to use the hype to gain interest within the organization rather than just using it to, treat it as something that should be looked away from and you need to drum it down. Hype is good. You just need to ride the wave.
Okay. But at the same time, there is hype on the one side, and then you are hit with the dark reality. The reality is your data sources are still not integrated.
Correct.
You don't have a single view of your customer. You don't understand which products contribute to maximum profitability, right? And AI is very hungry when it comes to data. So on other side, the board members, when they go out, they listen, okay, with GenAI, this company has achieved 40% of EBIT margin compared to what the competition has done. The reality is still, enterprises are struggling with basic dashboards, basic data integration in place. So how you manage that sort of expectation?
So my role has been more in the last decade of 10 years. I've worked across 3 companies purely focused on transformation. In this organization itself, my first year's focus was based on digitizing the environment, making sure that we have everything on a platform where information or data can be stored, structured, and managed. That was obviously the primary goal. Then we moved into the second year, which was about integrating. We established a policy, or let's say a framework, around one function, one application. So we said that instead of humans traveling from department to department to gather information, we will allow integration and flow to move information between departments. Then creating the sort of dependency within business functions to understand that if operations does not provide a report to finance to process the invoices in time, it will impact in return the operations. So creating that sort of interdependency or a business understanding of each other's role was a crucial part for our integration. It was not just creating an API, but to create that understanding as to why a certain closeout in finance needs input from the various business functions, and how will it help that finance does these closeouts and provides information back to them for better decision making on cost control. So creating this during the integration phase has helped us to further create the ecosystem and breaking the silos. So people understand that each process is interdependent on every other person's process, and so there is a method to the madness, as we say. Our year 3 is based around automation, and somehow, at least at this point for us, AI has come as a automation on steroid for us, because we are anyways now moving into a stage where we are looking into automation, and we are looking to sort of take whatever we are doing manually and some level of, say, flow and processes that we have within the systems to sort of run some processes, some automation tools to actually simplify the processes and to make, automate as much as we can to reduce the manual effort. Now, this is a model, but not every company goes through this kind of a scenario. As you mentioned, you realize your data is in a mess. And I think AI is founded on data. So whether you like it or not, or whether you feel that I would get more brownie points by rolling out my first agentic AI or releasing my first GPT model, if you do not provide enough attention to streamlining your data, your models will fail.
But isn't it very, it is what I've seen, it is very tough to explain to especially the board who's looking for a quick ROI, return on investment, when it comes to data investments specifically, because what they're looking for is a quick rollout of business use cases. And year 1, year 2, if I understand from what you have talked about, these are foundational years, right? Where you are building a data foundation in place, where you are clearing a technical debt, right? Before even you can put agentic or any framework on top of it. So in year 1, year 2, from a business standpoint, maybe they don't see much of the light on the other side of the tunnel, right? So how you manage that expectation gap between what or how the value can be delivered or how the value can be fast-tracked for an end user consumption?
So the key thing is that, look, for me, it's been transformational. So I have probably been in the organization for a shorter period of time. But there is also individuals who've been in the organization for many, many years. And I do understand it's extremely challenging to suddenly get up and say to the board that, by the way, all these problems we've been facing with data and with all your insights and dashboards is now going to be fixed with AI, right? You're setting an expectation, which is at best risky, because you are overcommitting AI's promise. And also it sets a certain expectation from the board that, okay, so now all these years you've not been able to fix the problem. If AI can fix it, how soon can you deliver it, right? And I think this is the conundrum that people have, because they need to find a way out of the mess. And so any new technology that comes in, I mean, if you go back a few years when RPA came in, right, everybody thought, okay, I'm going to bring in RPA and I'm going to solve all my invoicing problem. And then lo and behold, you realize that the cost of actually running an AP team is cheaper than actually running the RPA. And I think this is the same issue that we will incur, because when you've been in an organization for a couple of years, you have to definitely clear the technical debt. You need to address those difficult questions with the board. You need to establish the ground reality with the board as to why so many models and so many insights and dashboards are not functioning. But then I would say, if you are approaching it from that perspective, it still seems like IT is trying to convince the board of AI solving their problems. And I don't think that's the right perspective to take. I think a right perspective to take is to get in the boardroom to understand whether the organization has an appetite for AI. Are they looking to achieve something differential, let's say a new business model, a new business line, reducing their retail costs, reducing their logistics cost, looking at something that is a burner issue for them, and then find ways to see whether AI can solve the problem. But to jump too quickly and too conclusively to AI is also risky, because there are other technologies that can solve that problem before AI can, right? And if your data is in a mess, very soon you realize that AI will underperform as well. I mean, if you end up with a 50% accuracy on the model, people will say, I could do a better
Yep.
output from an Excel sheet. And so I think the approach, the first step, is really crucial. Linking it to business imperatives is extremely crucial. And finding that sweet spot where the business and you see that there is a ray of light somewhere and it's not all dark. And we've tried everything in the book, but maybe let's give AI a shot.
Sure.
Could be a better way of going about it.
Sure. Let me switch gear from technology, because you, as a transformation leader, you are managing three key pillars, if I have to call it as one: people, process, technology. I think we have spoken enough about technology. Let's move to another dimension, which is the people dimension. And now with the transformation, let's imagine what I said in the beginning. Your workforce is 50% virtual. These are all agents and bots, right?
Yeah.
Now, you are not doing just a behavioral change among human actors, if I have to call it that way. You are also making certain changes to the agents or the bots which exist or coexist within your organization. So, as a transformation leader, have you given any thoughts around building a process or building the transformation around this dimension of people where the workforce is sort of mixed, combined of virtual and human actors both?
So that will be the future. And future is very close, actually. Of course, when you look at the automation piece, or you look at the agentic AI, or which is now the buzzword for everyone, you think that in time your human workforce would be replaced. Obviously, it wouldn't visualize as half your desks you have a humanoid and half your desks you have humans. But it would be...
Sorry to interrupt. So let me rephrase my question.
Yeah.
So you spoke about AP team, which is doing account payables, right? So let's say within the payable team, there are 20 bots which are operating, which are clearing the invoices, right? If invoices go wrong or there is some issue with the payments, humans are put on blame, or they have been asked, why so, right? So there is a complete RACI which kicks in. There is a responsibility authority matrix which kicks in. When you have within your team, Aditya has 5 bots, agents now operating under him, since he's the head of account payable, let's say, right? So how that authority, how that whole ownership, deliverables will flow into this process. That's what I'm looking for.
So, I mean, at the very primary level, you're looking at a governance model that helps you to control what the bots are allowed or not allowed to do. But from a people perspective, what I would imagine is that at the stage that you are actually going ahead with a company that's 50% running through bots and through AI agents, you would need to ensure that you don't leave the human behind. It's extremely important that when you have an environment, let's say, where 80% of the process is run by the bot, but the AP individual is just responsible for ensuring quality of the bot's performance, then their capability to understand what the bot is allowed to do, what's not to be done, and the ability to interpret, which is coming from explainable AI and responsible AI, is also a skill set that should be developed within them. I think we are talking a lot about awareness of AI, but we need to have a very concrete sort of training program to run within the AI deployment, because you're changing the ecosystem of how humans interact with agents. Of course, they would deploy the agents initially as a method to reduce their mundane work, in an ability to see that they can become more efficient, which would be the positive orientation of how you should deploy AI within an organization. But in time, they have to challenge what the agent is doing. And they should be able to understand how to fine-tune the agent a little bit better. And I think that business knowledge that the individual, the human that still exists in that ecosystem carries is extremely important. So it's almost like when you design the solution of AI, ensure that you have the human's role redefined. And ensure that what is their responsibilities towards the agent, what is agent's responsibility towards the human, and who who finally takes the decision? So where does the DOA sit?
Okay.
Who can override? Who can? So it's almost like you have to change the whole people layout, right? You have to involve human capital. You have to involve trainers. You have to involve coaching teams to ensure that people are actually embracing these or working alongside these bots in a slightly different methodology. I mean, when we hire somebody new in the team, we use this methodology of forming, storming, norming,
Yeah.
right? So we always tell the team that every time somebody new comes in or somebody leaves the team, there's going to be, the whole team goes through the process all over again, right? So they go back to forming, then they storm, then they normalize, then they perform. And I think agents should be treated as such. They should be brought into any function or any department with the same methodology to allow humans to understand, adjust with them, understand their working style, understand what brief. And when I say working style, it sounds almost human, but it's also understanding what is their brief, right? What exactly are you supposed to do versus what the only differential is that I would assume the agent is devoid of emotion, which a human has.
Which is good. Which is good.
Which may be good
Yeah.
in most cases. And then, so they may lack this issue of insecurity and,
Yeah.
you taking over my job, or it actually just requires that it needs to be, but it is still dependent on the human, whether it's the AP team or the IT function or the AI team, to continue to fine tune its performance. So there is no, and until it becomes fully autonomous, where it can function efficiently at 100% accuracy score, then yes, there is a different conversation to be had. But I don't think we are there yet. I think what we should focus on is how to build this ecosystem of humans and bots and agents working together.
Collaborating together. Yeah. So is there any sort of task which you can envision which bots can do better than human, where what you have been advocating so far, it is like human advocacy is what you are talking about, right? Whereas where the world is moving, bots are also becoming self-learned.
Correct.
They are, any task which is SOP based task, they can do much better compared to what human can do.
Yeah.
The error rates are minimalistic compared to what humans can do. So do you think there can be certain tasks where a agent or a bot is guiding human being, okay, now dude, this is something which you have to do. I have done my bit. Maybe I am a maker of this process, and maybe your role is just a checker of this process or an auditor of the process, and maybe another bot can do that. So do you see certain roles which being picked up by bots more effectively compared to humans?
There are many roles that bots can definitely do better than humans. I mean, if you look at current GPT models, if you look at the whole concept of unsupervised learning and look at the autonomous agents that are being created, there is, because you're processing information at a different speed than a human does. You are ingesting data at a higher speed than a human does. Translating and reading and contextualizing data better than what a human does. So obviously, if you look at it from speed, it is definitely favorable on the AI's end. But at the same time, the question that we have as IT leaders is to how to guide the organization to continue to deliver its business model. AI has to be a means to the end, not the end, right? So when you're bringing AI in, and you're coexisting it with the humans, there could clearly be processes. There could be a point where a specific function can be fully automated to allow it to run end to end. And that's quite real these days, right? If you look at agentic AI or agents being used in hospitals, in medical field, where they are contacting patients and prescribing medications or reminding them of their prescription, these are things that don't need a check or balance. You can, just the fact that a patient arrives at the clinic on time, reminded by the bot, can be done. There are AI that are actually negotiating contracts better than a human is doing. Creative field, you have seen marketing, design, almost every area of the field, the image generation, the video generation, the content, influencers, AI influencers. So that we have already crossed that threshold. We are already in an arena where humans now feel that the AI is performing better than them. But within an organization, the organization functions to a specific business outcome,
Yep.
which is based on profitability, profit margins. And so any kind of technology, AI included, has to achieve that end goal and has to create that value. Now, while you're transitioning, you need to also create the positive outcome or the positive environment for that experiential knowledge that humans hold with them to translate into what the bot or an AI is capable of. And I think at some stage, even within organizations, and let's say in certain organizations, that has already happened, call centers, retail,
Yep.
many areas you'd find that the shift is more on AI, less on humans. So I think that shift is happening gradually and will continue to increase. But it's important for us to allow that transition to happen effectively. And I think if you sideline the existing humans, you run the risk of derailing the organization's core model.
Sure. So, what you have recently added or deleted in your operating model as a transformation leader, when you are talking about a true transformation to any of your new customers or to your new employer.
Yeah.
So, what you have added or deleted onto your operating model?
We haven't yet reached in that stage where we have added or deleted anything. We are more focused on how to improve the efficiency of our current processes. So we've not reached that stage where we could add or delete something. But we do want to keep an eye on the horizon where in our business, which is a chartering business, we would like an AI that could recommend the best charter option rather than a human going and finding out which bids are in the market and how to. So we would like an AI to find us growth. And that would be our goal, to be able to build AI that can manage, the chartering process, not just the process, but to actually go wide and understand how the market dynamics is playing and how give recommendations to the tendering team on finding better business opportunities, allowing them to match the available fleet with the business opportunities. We would like an AI to actually improve the quality of life of our crew offshore, from their well-being, monitoring their well-being, their mental health, performance, competency.
Yep.
So we like to add all of these elements into the work streams, but not looking at actually deleting anything yet. I think we are focusing on how AI can actually make it more efficient and more enabled for the current work streams that we have. But yes, there is this eye on the horizon that at some stage, the ecosystem will realize its tipping point where it will say, I think we could do this slightly differently, and let's see if we can have a different business model. And I think a lot of companies have achieved that. A lot of companies have, created products that were not imagined by the creative team and the business teams. It was the AI functionality that actually identified a gap in the product line that they were able to create one. And I think this is the direction we would go. Ours is a B2B company. I would always say in a B2C environment, a customer's voice is the best way to know where you should drive AI towards. But in our case, it would be more around profitability, value, client satisfaction, because these are the parameters that we look at.
Interesting. I'll quote one example, I'll quote my son's example. He had a headache and he Googled up headache online. He found headache can be caused by cancer.
Yeah.
So he did his own diagnosis and he also came up with his own treatment plan.
Yeah.
He thinks headache equal to now a cancer. So with AI and with all the hype on the agentic side, people are coming to you with the problem.
Yeah.
They are also coming with the diagnosis to the problem. They also go to ChatGPT and come with the solution to the problem, right? Which is what is changing now, right? Where IT used to say solving this problem might take 10 months or 6 months or 4 months. Now people are coming back with a code or something from a co-pilot.
Yeah.
So how you are addressing these issues?
So it's a more evolved version of shadow IT, a more powerful version of shadow IT, I would say. I think it goes back to the point that we need to realize our role as a conduit to what the business needs to achieve. And I think the days of IT becoming a kingdom of its own are long gone,
Yeah.
right? We have been talking about this word of enabling for quite some time, and I think now we need to really behave like enablers, right? When you behave like an enabler, you have to obviously understand, allow that understanding for the business as to what tools they are utilizing, what is the reference point that they have, and help them understand the risks of, as you gave the example of your son, not using the Google doctor, right? Going to a proper qualified physician to actually solve the problem. Which then brings us to the point where we need to ensure that while we are deploying AI, the elements of ethics of AI, elements of bias, elements of how we are achieving an outcome. Because it could very well be that at some point the organization gets so driven by AI that they realize that they could use AI to achieve a goal that may not be in line with some of the ethics of the business. And I think this role, information technology or leadership of technology has to take upon themselves. It's very important to have a framework up front. It's important to understand that, and I think sometimes ethics are treated as something that's wrong with the AI. No, it's something wrong with the way we have programmed and we have configured the AI. Because our principles that we have utilized or the framework that we have used is flawed, right? And that has created a certain outcome. But it's not only important to have a framework in place, it's also important to have an active check and balance, because you need to ensure that as the AI continues to evolve, you need to ensure that the frameworks are continuously adjusted, right? So when somebody comes into you and says, I found this little piece of information and I can program this in no time, why can't I use it? In isolation, yes, you can use it. But every employee is an ecosystem of the business model, right? So I think it's time and time you have to remind them, yes, you can do this at your home, but to do it in the organization, you have to allow us to understand its impact on the rest of the organization. So it requires conversation, it requires understanding their point of view, but deep down it requires understanding why are they taking that decision to go to find that problem. Is there a frustrating issue that IT has failed to address? Because what they're trying to do is to find a cure to a symptom, but we need to identify the system.
So isn't this a kind of a trade-off between one side with whole agent tech, with Gen AI, we're talking about democratization, right? On other side, we are still talking about going through a very guarded process, which we are still looking at a very bureaucratic process of how we are watching our turfs, right? So given these two sides, how you think there's a fine line, or how you draw a fine line between or how you define the trade-offs between, okay, this is what democratization means vis-a-vis, this is what are the ground rules of the game. So how you define that as a transformation leader?
So I think you do need to have a framework. I mean, I do agree that yes, there has to be a democratization of the IT, of AI as well. You need to allow people to learn from it and to train it, to actually evolve and to work for it. But to establish it in the right context and in the right framework is still something that has to be done at the very start. When somebody comes to you with let's say a random piece of software which fixes one issue but does not address the ecosystem of the organization, then some bit of guidance is required. I would say that guardrails is actually an essential feature for AI. Even AI today cannot be just released on the population. It cannot be told that you can do as you please, consume any amount of data, because you still need to protect the foundation of the organization. You need to protect the organization's confidential information. You need to protect payroll information to individuals, so personally identifiable information from one to the other. You need to also protect the business model or the formula, which is crucial to the business's survival, competitive information. So there are still assets and attributes you need to protect. And these have to be built into the guardrail. So I think bureaucracy will come if you if you limit innovation. But if you allow the businesses to embrace AI and innovate, then definitely they will continue to grow, and they will, at the point where you see the ecosystem is balanced and you see that AI conversation with a human and vice versa is within the guardrails and within the ethics framework, you allow it to naturally evolve. But you will still need to keep it in a certain, or allow it to function within a certain direction. You do not want instructions that actually make it into an area where suddenly you are unable to identify what is the actual outcome of the model, right? So even when you're talking about the AI models, you are not saying what is the sustainability of the model. You build a model today, let's say for stock keeping, but at some stage your stock process modifies and you realize that that was not incorporated into the stock keeping model. And so you suddenly see yourself facing these issues. So I think it's a continuous process. Bureaucracy can come from the fact that you are non-cooperative, or it's only, my way is the highway.
Okay.
That attitude is not what I'm propagating. What I'm saying is that you require a conversation, you require a guidance, you require an understanding, an awareness. But you do need the ecosystem to be excited about AI. You need them to embrace AI. You cannot do it by just simply pushing it. And that's what I said at the beginning, is that it has to be a business transformation. So I think it is a fine balance. Again, if people feel you're not allowing them to configure their own GPT in the office, they will see you as a restrictive model. There's no saving you that. But I guess if you provide them access to a GPT, which is within the guardrails, for them to freely use, then there's no harm. And then they will see you as an embracing organization.
Maybe last question. What's your piece of advice to CEOs or the board members, how they can embrace onto this AI journey, which is beyond the hype cycle, which delivers real value at a board level, and which can be embraced by their employees or by their workforce for another 4 to 5 years?
So first is identifying what is it that you want to achieve within your business.
Okay.
Growth, market share, the simple business models. What is it that you want to address? What's your problem that you're trying to solve through AI? Secondly, don't assume the existing IT department or the IT function is capable of delivering the solution. They themselves may need help from experts on AI. So be open to the idea of actually getting experts in to actually help position the AI within your organization, right? Allow to upskill your teams on AI, including your IT team or the IT team that you have within the organization. Set a very realistic expectation on value and ROI. Knowing that AI are learning systems, knowing that AI is based on data and modeling, and it requires the ability to contextualize the outcomes. Take it as a midterm, long-term investment. Don't rush into a model and expect it to deliver a result the very next day. And I think if you take all these into consideration and also build the right governance and framework model, then you could have a very quick success story on AI. But have the conversation and base it on some level of research. Don't just take the hype and start implementing AI from get-go.
Yeah, I think it has also to do a lot with data and AI literacy also.
Correct.
Where on one side there's a hype which is created, but at the same time people are not aware, like these are not deterministic model.
Yes.
So these are not 100% fact-based, these are probabilistic model, right?
Yeah.
So they can sway either ways, right? With that, Aditya, great talking to you. I think great insights. Thanks a lot for watching the show. Stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you.